Hello everybody, I'm Simen Agdestein. I'm the host of the show this time for Altibox Norway Chess. And today will be a very busy day. It will be Blitz, it starts in a few minutes. So actually I'm here all by myself today, which is a bit stressful, but it will be stressful anyway, because we will focus on the games. There will be games continuously, starting in just a few minutes. Blitz games to find out the pairing, the starting numbers for this real tournament, kind of. That starts tomorrow. But I have a feeling that it will be very real also this time. These guys take this Blitz things. It has become so much more serious with Blitz lately, and especially when you look at Magnus and sees how seriously how he takes it. And the World Blitz Championships, for instance, have become serious things. And Magnus managed to win this time. He takes it seriously. But also Anand did fantastically in Saudi Arabia just a month ago. And I think he came third in the Blitz and won the Rapid. So, but I'm not sure. I think Magnus is the obvious favorite, obviously. But who's the favorite after him isn't so obvious actually, because if you look at the ratings and look at the Blitz ratings, it's on the ordinary rating, Magnus is clearly on the top, with Caruana number second. But on the Blitz rating, it's actually Nakamura who's second. And Magnus is clearly on the top according to 2700 chess.com. There you have the live ratings, most updated. And there you see that Magnus' Blitz rating is 2965. That's enormous. And almost 100 points ahead of Hikaru Nakamura. So we'll see. Also, Levon Aronian is very good at Blitz. You see here, he's ranked number 3 in the group here this day, ahead of Vachier Lagrave and Karyakin next after that, and then comes Wesley So, and actually only then comes Caruana. So relatively speaking, Caruana seems to be a little bit weaker in Blitz compared to ordinary chess. But anyway, this will be exciting, and it's also quite exciting for another reason actually, because Shakiriyar Mamedyarov suddenly, I think it happened on the plane here, but he suddenly got a horrible toothache. That must be horrible, getting that on the way to such a tournament. So he couldn't appear on the press conference because of big problems with his teeth. Or one tooth, I think it is. So it's a bit of an emergency here with Shakiriyar Mamedyarov. Hopefully he will be able to play the Blitz. I don't know how that affects his playing. It sounds like it should affect him, which is a bit sad. But the main thing is, of course, the main event that starts tomorrow. So I think the organizers here work quite hard to find an emergency tooth, a doctor that can see to him, see if something can be done. But we have it's a lot of the same players as previous years. It's actually the best players in the world, as simple as that. Except for, which is a bit strange. This is 8 best players in the world plus Levon Aronian and Vishy Anand, according to the classic rating list. But they are, of course, they could be ranked as number 2 or 3 anyway. So this is the best tournament of the year, and that is the ambition of the organizers too, to actually be the very best. They have been doing a fantastic job here, I know. We must come back to that later. We'd like to talk to different guests, and especially I would like to introduce the organizers a little bit more, because it's really impressive what they managed to do here. But at the moment, this time we'll focus on the Blitz, and it starts in only 3 minutes, 3 o'clock sharp. very few minutes. I'm not sure, absolutely sure which game we will focus on. I think we have to focus on one game at a time, since it goes so fast. It's 3 minutes on the clock plus 2 seconds increment. That means fast. I don't know what's most important, to play fast or good, but you necessarily have to do both. Magnus is, I would say, clearly number one in fast, and also in good, of course. But it seems like Magnus will meet Karjakin in the first round, so which is a very natural starting point for us to follow that game, as they played each other so many times. And Karjakin is actually have been doing very well here in Stavanger. It's his 4th year here, altogether 6 times, and he won the 2 first events. And it seemed like he came last year actually. So he said on the press conference that it's either first or last. But Magnus will meet Karjakin in the first game. Wesley So will meet Ingliren. And Mamadiaro is set to play Anand. Hopefully he will be there. And Korana will meet Marshall. All the games are interesting, of course. So if you see that if something really exciting will happen in another game, we might actually switch to another one. But I'll try my best to follow one game. I think that's more than enough. And I want to use computers, of course. I wouldn't have time anyway, but I'll try my best to explain what's happening. And I have neighbors trying to do the same here. TV2, the biggest Norwegian commercial channel, is here and just next door, just a few meters away from us. There are 4 people trying to understand what's going on. So the Norwegian TV is really putting resources into chess as usual. So that's quite fantastic actually for us Norwegians and chess enthusiasts. I think it's only seconds before they start. So Magnus is white. It's about the winner in the tournament gets the chance to pick the starting number in this proper tournament. So it's not more than that actually. So the main thing is to come among the 5 first, then you will have 5 whites in the series tournament. Magnus is white now. I wonder if he will start with e4, d4. And now they started e3. Magnus started d3. Fantastic. It's just to get out of Karjakin's opening preparation, of course. But it isn't only because of that. I know that Magnus has thought about, and he's had ideas with starting with e3. For instance, g4 is in the air at some moments, and probably not here. With so much now the focus is on the center. It seems like it will be turned into a quite normal setup the moment Magnus plays d4. But will he try to avoid playing d4? He will. Magnus' main strategy, I think, during the Blitz tournaments is simply to play non-conventional chess, just to get the players out of their preparation. And I don't know, it's quite a normal position now, but it has nothing to do with preparation or anything. So it's a normal position. I'm sure Black has equalized already, I would say, but that doesn't matter in Blitz. It's about playing fast. Is Magnus thinking? What is he thinking? He might consider playing d4 to put the bishop on d3. If not, he might end up with the bishop on e2. And I don't know if Magnus is considering to play d4 or not. If he wants to play d4, it's more logical to do it now because the bishop seems to belong on d3, I would say. He took right away. And even twice. Okay. We might end up with a hanging pawn structure. That is different. That is certainly something to play on for both sides, of course. Is Magnus still trying to keep the pawn on d2? That's interesting because he's got a couple of diagonals towards black's king. But I doubt it. I doubt that he could succeed by just playing with the bishops on, let's say, bishop d3 and not. I think it will end up with a pawn on d4 soon. But it might be a little bit late. Oh, Magnus play a3. I think that's to prepare d4 and avoid a check on b4. So it will be transferred to a hanging pawn structure or something like that. I think he will play d4 now. And oh, not yet, not yet. There are tricks in position like b4. Is b4 in the air? It is in the air. Rook c8 must be extremely natural now. It comes rook c8. And now it's actually a bit late to play d4 because things happening in the c line. So now I actually wonder what Magnus is going to do. Will he play rook c1 and queen back to b1? It's the most natural thing I can think of. But it is not much. Of course, it isn't much. But that doesn't really matter. I was just thinking, is there more things happening in some other games? But it's hard to find out when you start following one game. Well, I'm sure it will be interesting, more interesting. It's always interesting, but even in the driest positions, something will eventually happen, is my experience, and especially in Magnus games. So at the moment, not very much is. Oh, that now things starting to happen because Kara can play d4. I think that looks very good actually, blocking the bishop on d2. To me, it seems like black is better. But I'm very curious about what Magnus wants to do with his bishop on b2. I know he hates having bad pieces. It is an idea to play e4 and get a pawn majority on the king side, but then Magnus will be stuck with a quite bad bishop on b2, and that's something he really doesn't like. Magnus likes active pieces. Bishop a1, preparing b4, I guess, or yes, I guess he's preparing b4. It is interesting. Is it time for b4 already? Because if it takes on e3 and takes on b4, there is always queen b2. Suddenly a long diagonal there. h3, then what's the point? Well, just to keep the position going and see what will black do and gain some time. And I think that's quite typical Magnus because he wants to postpone crucial decisions till the opponent has little time. And so that means the further out in the game, the better, because then, well, b4 was in the air definitely, now it's too late. But he's got a chance to play his bishop to b5. I'm not sure. b4 is there, right? It's already there. Now this is a crucial position, definitely, because now I'm not sure what Karakin will do. He just protects the c-pawn. But now there are tricks in the position with the bishop on b7 a little loose, and the c5 pawn is loose. Even the f7 pawn is a bit loose if you think bishop c4 and queen. That's what he played, bishop c4. And now, well, I'm sure objectively, black should be doing fine. He took on d4 actually. Got rid of the bishop. That was in case he takes with the pawn. He didn't want to be stuck with the bishop on a1. But can Karakin have possibly any problems here? Are there any tricks? But just c takes d4. He took with the bishop for some reason. I thought c takes d4 was quite natural. He wants to keep pressure on the d line. But it seems like Magnus can... now first question is it hanging on d2? I guess Karakin spends a few seconds. No, sorry, the rook on c7 is on prise. Actually, it seems like Magnus is quite active. Queen f4. The queen is okay there. You can't play g3 because of queen f3. Rook e3 looks like a natural move to me. Double on the e line. But it is hanging on d2. Maybe simply, it protects it simply. But to me, it seems like that pawn is actually hanging. Not really. It can take on d2 with the rook. But it will be problems when Magnus takes on c7 at the end. Bishop f1, that was not the most active move, but solid. If you place, this looks just, it looks like a draw actually. The only one who can be better must be black. Okay, I think this is a draw. We have to switch to some other game. But which one? I don't have a clue. I haven't seen any of the other games. This is a draw in the Magnus game, all right? We switch to something else. I see that Caruana actually lost. That's quite strange because he's so good at ordinary chess, but not so good in Blitz. But Marchier Lagrave is very good in Blitz. And I see that Mohamed Yarrow, he's there, which is good news. And they ended with a perpetual, I can see, a draw. And Wesley Su has won against Ding Liren. And I'm not sure, but Ding Liren just played in the Chinese league and he won 5 games in a row, which sent him up to number 4 in the world top list in ordinary ratings. So he's in form, but I'm not sure if he's good at calculating jet lags actually. He played Magnus on the internet some months ago, and there he lost horribly. And I think it looked like he miscalculated how many days it takes to get adjusted after a very long travel. But so it seems like Hikaru has also won. And that must be well done because he played Aranyan. And I just see the final position that White will be mated with Bishop Knight f4 at the end there. I'm not sure how long the rests are, but I must admit I'm very curious to look at this game, Hikaru Nakamura. Ariona, I don't know if you have time to catch up, but I'll try to go through it quickly because I'm curious myself. I guess other people are curious too. Quickly, this line, Ariona has played this line a few times lately. I don't know why this has become popular. You're not supposed to take on e4 here and check on a4 and win the pawn on e4. It's possible, but it's not good. Everyone knows that. This is supposed to be very old news. This is good for black. But somehow people have started playing this line anyway, trying to get not an advantage, but it's just something to play on, I guess. I think that's the most ambitious thing you can do just in this opening with White. Okay, it's become an interesting opening. We'd love to have more time to look at this one. Weak square on b3. Weak pawn on c3. And black is active all over the board here. It's hard to say who's better actually. I don't know. If you have a computer, it will probably tell you. But to me, it seems like Ariona has a bad rook on a2 here. Okay, now it's obvious that black is much better. And desperation, I guess, e4. Is it? Was it a lucky counter strike? Because the deep one runs if he takes it. Maybe this isn't bad for white at all. If he plays even e5, I see the knight and b3 is a bit stranded. They took here. Let me just go through it quickly because we don't have more time than that for it anyway. And now we have a situation where I guess it's a typical situation where the knight and queen cooperates better than bishop and queen, and especially that bishop on c4, b4, which is just a waste. But this seemed to be just mate. Yeah. Okay then. We don't have time for anything, any interviews or anything now, of course. The players are they have to come after the proper games, but not after Blitz, of course. I'm here all by myself, but I like to communicate. It's a bit better done. So please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We have a special person taking care of all contacts there. And I see Benedicta Skog is here. I hope to get a chance to speak to her later. But the organizing committee is not big. It's basically a very few person doing a lot, which reminds me of something Winston Churchill said. How was it again? Well, the point was that there are so many people. We can thank so few people for so much. It was the people who defended England during the war. There are very few people we have to thank a lot for here, and I hope to get a chance to speak to them during the tournament, and perhaps even today. So, a little break till the next game comes very soon. I'm not sure. Nei, jeg vet ikke, det virket som jeg hadde litt tid, men det er bedre om det kommer etter neste runde. For da har vi ganske god tid. I'm terribly sorry, we're a little bit late. The game has already started, second round has started. And we're off with Magnus Carlsen again, against the one with the toothache. And I actually didn't see the first moves, but it is definitely an interesting position. It's a King's Indian setup. Magnus has chosen a King's Indian setup, which is done a few times lately actually. And without playing in a typical way. With the King's Indian you normally play e5 very soon. But here I suspect Magnus is planning to play e6 and open the e line, which is, I've seen him done before. Or c6 and open the c line is possible too, of course. But I would love to see. I think if I may, I just click through the first moves quickly. Bishop g5. Oops. It seems like we're going live. We have to look at the games, go through the games more, probably a little bit later. We're live. Magnus is playing c6. This is I've seen him play it like this before, similar ways, and it's an interesting setup actually because I think this is quite okay for black, I must say, because I learned that I played against Michael Adams many years ago, and then I learned a little about these structures. And black has no weaknesses. It's very hard for white to find the plan. And the bishop pair is not really doing much. The white squared bishop, I don't know what's the ideal square for the bishop on f3, what it really is. And now there are already threats, so perhaps, I'm not sure if it's a threat, but the knight might jump into d3. I don't know if it's doing anything there. But most likely Magnus will follow up with just rook e8, queen b6, maybe a4, and there comes h3, which Magnus probably has to go. Oh, he goes into d3 because he can return via e5. But a3, that was really a quite critical move actually, because if Magnus can play a4 soon, it's hanging on d3 now, but in not much time Magnus will be able to play a4, and that must be tremendous for him. But knight a5, bishop e2, there are tricks here. f4, I think in general what's Mamadjaro's strength is basically dynamic. It's fantastic with in dynamic position. It's not possible to say in his games that without talking about squares and general things. It's just about what works in practice. And now he even sends a bishop rook to h3. This is interesting. If Magnus gets mated, it doesn't really matter if there is a weak square on b3. And it looks actually like a quite strong plan to send the queen to f4. And well, it didn't. It was perhaps, I'm not sure if that was possible or not, but queen to f4 was certainly something to think about a couple of moves ago, and sending the queen to h4. But this is, of course, Magnus is this is a real critical position already, because it's live or die for Magnus. He may easily die actually, because he will be mated. Bishop d4 and queen h6. But maybe you can just hold on with bishop g7 after bishop d4. But or you can even, oh, what happened? He took on c5. This is typical Mamadjaro. What's work in practice is the only interesting thing. And now the queen comes to h6, and it will even go to h7. But it's not mate, even if it comes there. I thought perhaps you had to take with the pawn to keep the d5 square, but maybe it doesn't matter. Queen h6, you can perhaps just take on b2. If that's the case, oh, it's even tricks like that. Another point. Simply winning the exchange, but this must be enough compensation for Magnus, I think, or maybe not. He has the d4 square, but the b file is open for the white rooks. This is quite typical, I would say, Momentaro play. It's just dynamic all the way. It's hard to play like Momentaro because judging such dynamic things is difficult. But there will end up, Magnus' chance is to be strong on the black squares, but he has a serious weakness on b7, of course. For a while he can prevent the rook from on h3 to enter the scene, but in not so many moves. Oh, he may be able to defend by simply putting a bishop on c7. And the b-line problem is maybe out of the way. This might actually end up in a dynamic balance. g5, played g5 now to keep the black squares. He didn't. Played e5. Seems like another draw to me. Is there anything else going on in some other games? I asked the audience here who's following the other games if they can help me and tell me if there's something going on in the other games. I think it's time to switch to something else. If someone may help me. We should draw already. Which makes it not so interesting anymore. Nakamura Caruana. We have switched to Nakamura Caruana quickly. I hope. That's certainly, maybe we should have started that game. I don't want to be nationalistic to follow Magnus' game just because it's Magnus, but just because he's Norwegian. But he's the world champion, so... but this is interesting, definitely. Seems like Nakamura is having big problems with the e-pawn. Can it be of some perpetual here? It could be. Isn't this e-pawn just going straight in? Seems like tricky like always, and it may end up in a draw. That was tricky by Nakamura. That's all I could tell. The few seconds I managed to look at this position. I think this was really well done by Nakamura to manage a draw here. It seems like it will be a draw. So well done. I think in what seemed like a critical position. Anand, Wesley So played a draw. Solid guys, not so surprising perhaps. But anyway, it is a bit surprising that, yeah, we have many draws in Blitz actually. But Magnus in the draw. Aronian lost again. This looks really critical. Has he lost his first 2 games? And all games are finished. Not anyone yet. Ding Liren also drew against Vachela Grav. There's only a bishop left there. And Aronian lost again against Karyakin, which is easily done, of course. Do we have time to have a look at it? The next game starts in 10 minutes, I've heard. But I think we'll use the chance. We have Benedicta Skog, one of the main persons, or perhaps the main person in the organizing committee. It would be lovely if we get a chance to talk to her. She's nodding. It's good. Hello, we're back again. Now this time with Benedicta Skog.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having me.
Oh.
Actually, because it's you who have invited me, actually.
Yes, that's true.
And you have invited all the others too, isn't that right?
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm working at Altibox Norway Chess, so yeah, I'm part of the organizing team for this tournament.
You are the organizing committee.
Well, it's not just me. We're a team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're the one who works actually full time with this?
Yeah, I'm the one that's so lucky that I get to have this as my day job. So yeah, I do this full year.
Fantastic.
All year round, yeah.
What will you do in 2 weeks' time when this is over?
When this is over, I think, well, yeah, I think I'm just gonna have a good night's sleep, maybe a full night's sleep. And then there's a lot of things we need to do after the tournament, you know. A lot of, just see how everything went, and we have things to do as well when it's over. And we already start preparing for next year's tournament as well, so we always think ahead.
That's wonderful, actually, because this has really become a fantastic event for Norway, of course.
Yeah.
It's the 6th time.
Yes.
And it goes on, which is absolutely wonderful for chess enthusiasts.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, it's been absolutely amazing, all the fans that we have and all the people watching from all over the world. We're really appreciative of that, and we seem to have created something that people enjoy watching and following, and so it's been great.
And you don't even play chess yourself?
No, I'm not a chess player. No, not at all.
Which makes it even more fantastic and better, because I have a feeling that the best organizers are not chess players.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we obviously have people that knows chess really well in our group, but myself and the top organizers here, we don't have really any background in chess. And so I think that has allowed us to think really creatively about how we organize things, and we think a little bit outside the chessboard. But it's quite funny, I mean, because I look at chessboards and think about chess basically all day, every day, at work at least. So
without even knowing the rules.
But I do know the rules,
okay.
I do. So I know how to play, but I think a lot of people will beat me really fast.
So how on earth did you get involved in this in the first place?
Yeah, it was quite by coincidence. I got to know the founder of Norway Chess, and he told me about the event, and I was super excited about it and wanted to learn more, and I felt like I could contribute with some of my expertise and some of the skills I have, and so I was invited to be part of the board, and from there I just started working after a year or so being part of the board.
Yes.
Yeah.
In the first year, I know it's been a lot of voluntarily work here too.
Yeah, I mean, in the team, you know, we have Kjell Medland, the founder, and we have Frode Samme, who's in the technical part of this, and we have a lot of volunteers that are here for the main event. So right now, it's here in Stavanger, where we're based right now. There's, I don't know, probably 50, 60 people involved in the team, volunteers. We have people watching the entrance, we have people working at the ticket office, selling merch, we have people working with press and media, we have people on social media, we have so many different roles and people working. So it's quite nice. A lot of different people coming in.
Oh yes, all kinds of people are here actually. That's the fun thing about it.
Yeah. And it's quite nice because everyone's here for like 2 weeks, so we get to hang out and get to know each other. And it's a lot of fun being a volunteer, I think.
Do you hang out with the players too?
I mean, we try not to disturb the players too much. They're obviously really focused when they're here. And so, but I mean, they're around, so yeah.
They also socialize a little, don't they?
Yeah, they do. So I think they enjoy being here and hang out. They meet each other a lot, you know, in different tournaments all over the world. So obviously they know each other really well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And it's cool with the TV crew from TV2.
Yes.
There's a big group.
Yeah. So if you're in Stavanger or in the Stavanger area, I would recommend visiting us. We're at Clarion Hotel Energy, so feel free to come by. Every round starts 4:30, the regular rounds.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll talk more to you later.
We will.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
The game will start soon. Next game.
Yeah.
Short break, I think.
Perfect.
I think welcome back again. Next game will start just in a few seconds, and I think we will follow someone else this time. It wasn't that interesting. Magnus' two first games weren't that interesting, but let me see. Am I connected? What I just said was that I think we shall follow Kariaki and Nakamura this time, because the games of Magnus weren't that interesting, I must say. But Nakamura and Kariaki, at least on the paper, sounds really exciting, because there are actually, Kariaki, if I remember right, won the Blitz champion the year before. I think in 2016, if I remember right. But Nakamura is number 2 in the world in the Blitz rating, and when I'm saying this, I kind of think almost regret it a little bit, because the position isn't that interesting at the moment. But I'm sure it soon will be. I hope it will be. It was a fair guess that it could be the most interesting game, but to me it didn't end up that interesting so far. Now I wonder if Kariakin wants to take on d5 or not, a crucial decision, because if it doesn't, he lets white play e5. The safest is just to take on e4, but a bit boring. He invites for interesting play. Nakamura can play e5, but that would open the long diagonal from the bishop on h7. That's what black plays on in these positions. a5 automatically has to be answered with a3 to answer a4 with b4. And the other way too, if white plays a3, black would automatically play a5 to prevent b4. And I think this is standard procedure. Kariakin is waiting for white to play the pawn to e5, opening up the diagonal for his bishop on h7. And Nakamura is not playing it, he's postponing it. Will he put a knight on e5 instead? Maybe run with the pawn with the f pawn. I think it's quite critical actually to keep the bishop on h7. That's what he's doing. This position is all about the bishop on h7. Is it good or is it bad? And are there tricks here? Bishop g4, queen g4, knight g4. Another every time there is a chance to trade a piece, there is kind of a critical position, because a piece trade changes the character of the position so dramatically. He plays knight g4, and that makes the position suddenly it comes to life, because now he might take on h6, not right away, but very soon. I think he will run with h pawn to h4, and f4 is also in the air. And what is black going to do with that knight on g4? It's not so easy to chase it away. He cannot really play h5, and I think it's just kind of it's time to trade pieces, not to be mated. I think is the best Kariakin can do here. Play knight c5. He needs to get a. I was just going to say he needs to get a bishop back to f8, but I'm not sure about that. But it needs to trade pieces. Is f5 possible here? Probably not, but at least I would spend some time considering it. It is a piece sacrifice going on. It looks extremely dangerous, but is f5 possible? Why not? He's thinking. He played f5. It's become interesting and it's become critical. Was it just a pawn? No, it was hanging on c6. Lots of pawns. Oh no, this is really bad for... now comes also bishop d5, I think, unless there is bishop d5 next. And white will end up materially up, a lot of material up maybe, because the pawn on g4 will also fall soon. Was that it? Is it over already? Oh no! Fighting is fighting. Okay, still let me think. Black has 2 pieces for rook and 2 pawns, which is interesting. Perhaps actually enough. It's still about if that bishop on h7 is good or bad. And it easily becomes good if Nakamura starts moving the pawns. So but if he can't move the pawns, then he might actually just hang on. It seems like it's actually a balance. Maybe it's not even worse for black. I wonder if they saw all this in that little time, because the position changed so dramatically in just a few moves. And now it's become kind of a slow endgame. I think it's very good for white to trade a pawn, a rook. Oh, rook e5, clever. Is the pawn falling actually? Because after knight d6 he can take on a5, I think. I would have taken on a5 and rook a8 and then something. He took on a5. King e6 cannot be played because then he takes on d6. Oh, this is just Karyakin has just lost the pawn. I think it was the rook e5 trick there. And this now it's simply, I think it's just winning materially. Rook b6, and that is it, I think. Now we can do anything. Can even go with the queen. Here comes the king. And there are 2 pawns on c2 and d3 that hasn't started moving yet. c4 may come. Okay, this is just over, which means that Karyakin, I think, Nakamura will have a fantastic start if he wins this. That's it. That was it. That means that Karyakin, he also had a good start before this. They were both leading with 1.5 points out of 2. But now Nakamura takes the lead with 2.5 points. Are there anything interesting going on in any other game? Varsela Grav is the most interesting. Someone screams out here. Seems like Anand is just winning. He wins the queen. That Anand beat Varsela Grav. Very impressive indeed. And he's the oldest player. He's 40 years old, almost as old as me. And his brain is still as sharp and quick as ever, which is not the case with me, I must say. But compared to long chess, I also play much better when I don't have to think, to put it that way. Then it comes to intuition and so on. And the main challenge by being old is that you get tired, and in Blitz you don't really get so tired. But that was impressive. Anand is with 2 out of 3 now. Can we have a look at another game? Magnus beat Wesley So this time, as he did so many times in the... what was it again? It was on chess.com, I think, just before Christmas, where Magnus totally crushed both first Wesley So and then Ding Liren on some Blitz match on chess.com, I think. Which is very good for Magnus, because the more he beats These young guys, the better it is to get a grip on them before they become real world champion contenders. What else? Mamadiyar lost today. He can also blame on the tooth, of course. That's a chance. And good for Aronyan. He needed to win a point. This is his first point for Aronyan. He started horribly, but now he's at least on the score sheet with 1 point. And from this position here, it seems like he's had a quite easy game. Looks horrible for black. Caruana beating Liren. By looking at the final position, it seems like a great game. But I would love to look at these games more properly later. It's not that obvious that this final position is lost, actually. Is it lost? Did he lose on time or something? Just looking at the position of Caruana Dinglir and trying to understand what's happening here after knight f1. I think I have to look at another computer with a. He lost on time. Okay, Caruana lost on time, which is easily done, of course. With only 3 minutes and 2 seconds on the board, but it's still a bit strange. Shouldn't lose on time when you're number 2 in the world. But Magnus lost on time in the famous game here, of course, in Norway chess some years ago, when he forgot that he didn't get increment after move 60. That was in the proper tournament. Okay, so Caruana lost on time, which was nice for Dingliren because he had only half a point before. It was Dingliren who lost on time, sorry. Dingliren lost on time. Is he still jet lagged then? That's what comes to my mind. So Dingliren has only half a point. That's a bit bad actually, because if you're having a very hard time in the Blitz, you kind of tend to bring it on with you into the ordinary tournament. Actually, I managed to do something about that when I played in this tournament some years ago. I played in 2014 and had a horrible Blitz tournament. I was so nervous and was sure I was thrown to the wolves and played so horrible and lost almost every game. Didn't sleep at night and so on. But when it came to the ordinary tournament, I managed to do quite okay. But it enhances it makes the challenge bigger. And for Dingliren, he's number 4 in the world, but it is his first time here in Stavanger. This is the first time. This is the strongest tournament he's ever taken part in, as he said on the press conference. So a little bit of confidence for him would be good, I think. But he doesn't seem to get that so far. So after 3 rounds, Nakamura is leading with 2.5 points. Magnus managed to win and is second together with Anand with 2 points. And that's maybe, if you're thinking Magnus, it's a bit typical. He tends to play quite many actually boring games, but when the machinery starts going, it really starts going. So perhaps it started going now, and he's of course able to win lots of games. He can win the rest if so be. I'm a little bit curious. We have about five minutes till the next round starts. It starts every 20 minutes. I think I'll just go through Magnus' game very quickly because I'm curious. Nothing special in the opening as usual. Magnus just wants a game. Okay, he's got even the most boring positions end up with something when Magnus play is on one of the sides. Because here again we have a position with the question is this bishop on h5 good or bad? It may easily be horribly bad because it's not doing anything, even though it has a fantastic diagonal, a long diagonal, but it's not doing anything there. So I guess that's what happened, that this bishop here ended up much stronger than this one. Let me see. Square on d3 or d6, of course, is essential. Okay, Magnus is coming fast. The bishop certainly wasn't bad. It was very good. A little curious about this, but okay, this pawn decides the matter. Can't do anything. If that works, typically it does. This is quite typical Magnus, of course, but not clear. He could take back, and then the rook would go over to h6 or f6 or h6. I'm not sure, but is the pawn ending just lost? It seems so. If the pawn ending is lost, well, f6 was a blunder, of course, but then it's nothing to do about getting either a pawn ending or a bad rook ending. Okay, short break before next round. Hello again. Next round starts in just a few seconds. Round number 4. Nakamura is leading with 2.5 after 3. Anand and Magnus is following with 2 points. And it's always the same question: what game to focus on? I shouldn't be too nationalistic, I thought, and not following Magnus all the time. And but this time against Maxime Vacher-Lagrave, it's too interesting to not to follow. We have to follow that one because Maxime is such an exciting player, and we could easily follow all of Maxime games, I'm sure. So this is we follow Magnus, see what happens, or Maxime. Maxime is is by the way popular here because he goes to the confession booth in the ordinary games often. The TV2. We'll talk about that later. The game has started. Boring opening, is it? Only made 2 moves, but a slow start. This could easily be. This is what Anand played against Magnus in the first World Championship match in 2013, and then Magnus was so nervous. I remember very well. He could barely make the moves because his hand was shaking. Knight d7 makes it interesting because after c4, Magnus may perhaps take it and protect it with knight c6, knight b6. But he could of course start with b3. a4. It's very strange actually that this rand pawns has become so active in modern chess, but they have. They play a4 and h5 in so many positions these days. Magnus just countered because the knight belongs to b6, and then of course you cannot let the white pawn go to a5. So now I'm really wondering how this game is going to speed up and be as interesting as we want it to be, because it's not that entertaining by now. Shall we give them a few minutes more or a few seconds more to make it interesting? I'm scanning through the other games to see if I lose interest quickly, I must admit, but it should be interesting. And when there are so many great players playing, and we are only able to command one at a time. I love those screens where you show all the games at the same time. Then there's a lot of things to follow when it's Blitz. Well, if there's nothing else, you can no other way to win, then you have to win on time, I say to my students sometimes. And Magnus is very good at that, to win on time. But not against Maxime Vacher-Lagrave, because he's just as fast, or even faster. But it's time to keep an eye on the clock, because that may be a crucial thing here. And it's also interesting to see, okay, the position was boring, it will surely fire up in a few moves. It already has, actually. It's become more interesting. Is Magnus having a fantastic position, actually? Because the bishop on g2 is really bad. And well, Magnus is dominating in the center. It seems like Magnus has got the upper hand. He doesn't want to trade rooks, that's because he wants to win. He could play the rook to the d line, but that would just decrease the pressure, letting Maxime trade rooks. So he wants to keep the rooks. Okay, and b4, there are tricks on c7 if he takes, and if he doesn't, he didn't. There's a weak square on c4. And, well, it's become interesting as usual. Magnus has an important grip on c4. Just when I said it, it disappeared, because the pawn on c7 is also loose if he takes it. That's the problem these days. People fight back. It's not. It was more less dynamic before, I think, more static. There was a weakness, and then you played on that weakness, and you won. That was how Karpov won his games back in the days, back in the 70s. But now people are fighting back all the time. And now this c5 pawn has become a crucial factor here. c6 is in the air. That's why Magnus overprotected c7. And Maxime has taken, I think, because he must make a decision. I'm not sure what he will do. If I had only 1 second, I would consider h4, but it's probably bad because of weakness on g4. He took on e5. He took the strong knight, which is maybe not so stupid when you look at it. And simply e3 perhaps and play bishop back to f1. And perhaps the black square diagonal bishop is pointing out of nowhere. Not stupid. Now I'm beginning to like white actually, because I don't really see what this bishop here is doing. And it's not easy to chase away this knight, because if you play c6 it might end up on d6. Well, now it's very, oops, it's critical. I was just about to say, did he blunder? He has been queen c1, because if he takes on d1 there is no queen c4. But that bishop on b3 became a little bit more active than Maxime Vachier-Lagrave intended, I'm absolutely sure. He could take the pawn on c4, can he? How does that knight get back? That bishop, well, it can just return to d7 if it wants to. And now it's more like probably Maxime Vachier-Lagrave has enough compensation for a draw, I think, because his pieces are too good. Bishop c4 and queen a3 or something. The pawn on the a5 pawn is doomed, it seems. Cannot keep it protected on a4. At least things are happening fast here now. If he takes on d4 and takes on c6, then there are 2 pawns. It's actually 2 pawns up for Magnus. Seems like two good pawns too. So now it's clear that Magnus is better, and Magnus just needs to hold on to his pawns. Rook endings are always a draw. But what about 2 rook endings and a queen? That's not always a draw, definitely not. But then the king's position the role of the king plays a much bigger role with only heavy pieces left. Magnus keeps the bishop. He needs it to protect his king, I think. But it's hard to see that he will have any advantage then. Maybe just back to c5 and a draw. It seems like that. Is this a draw? Seems like a draw. So that was it. Seems draw. What else? It was interesting. It seemed like a boring start, but it was interesting as usual. It becomes interesting eventually. Is Nakamura having a hard time against Mamadjaro? I'm just glad Mamadjaro is playing, but he isn't. This must be a draw, because all the pawns are on, all the important pawns, which is those on the king's side, are on black. Now things are going fast, but it doesn't really matter. It's not possible to enter this position. This is a draw. Black can just go forward and back, I think. No way to enter via f3 or anything. Just do nothing and wait. Seems like a draw. Interesting pawn ending in Caruana Karyakin. That's really interesting with the pawn endings. But you have to calculate so far. And people sometimes ask, how far can you calculate? It's of course very hard to say, because you have these trees, so many lines in every on every move. But in these positions, it's just about, it's one straight line. Oh no, it was one tempo too late for Karyakin. Impossible to calculate in Blitz. So it was just one tempo late. So Caruana won. It's back on plus score, 2.5 out of 4 now. And Anand won again. which is impressive again, but really critical for Ding Liren then. He's got only half a point after 4 rounds. And the worst, and it can easily be even worse because confidence is so important in Blitz. Wesley So, Aronian, draw. Nakamura, Omdiar draw. Magnus draw. That means Nakamura and Anand is leading with 3 points. With Carlsen and Caruana tracing with 2.5. Cool. 4 rounds played, 5 rounds left. Next game starts in 5 minutes or something. Shall we have a short break? Hello again. This time it must be Dingliren against Magnus Carlsen, because that smells blood, I'm afraid. Magnus Carlsen beat Dingliren so much in that, I think it was on chess.com, event before Christmas. It was a total massacre. They played in different time limits, 5 minutes, and ended up with 1 minute or something. I think they played for 3 hours or something. And Magnus crushed Dingliren completely, and it became worse and worse. Because when you start losing confidence, it gets, of course, worse. And now, Dingliren, I thought that time it was jet lag. I think jet lag played a role. It may have played a role again, because now Dingliren has started quite horribly, actually, with only half a points after 4 rounds. And Magnus definitely wants to win this, I'm absolutely sure. So I'm a little bit curious about how he will play in a situation when he definitely wants to win. Will he play e3 again? Or will he play a proper opening? It will start in just some seconds. Other games that might be interesting is, of course, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave against Aronian, because Aronian has started winning, I think. Well, at least he won. He's won one game. He plays c4, a proper opening. Real opening this time. Magnus plays g3 without going out with the knights first, which is a little bit special. I wonder how Magnus will get an advantage with this against this setup for black, because I know that's extremely solid. c6 makes the position interesting, because I was wondering how he would get an advantage if Dingliren just played knight to c6, a normal play, but now it becomes interesting. I guess after knight f3, then e4 must be the point, and follow up with d5 and protect the pawn. If that is the case, then I wonder where Magnus should put the knight. What is Magnus going to do then? He's already thinking. That's a little bit special, because they haven't made many moves. e3. It doesn't look like a sign of something interesting. After d5, I don't really see what is the problem for black, I must say. It might be a single pawn to play on. With c takes d. If he took with c, he will have to take back. Well, he doesn't have to actually to accept the single pawn, because if he takes on d5 and Magnus takes, Dingliren takes back, and then if he plays d5, d4, there is a check on b4. So now Dingliren is struggling to avoid getting a single pawn against Magnus. He will get a single pawn. I'm sure objectively black should be absolutely fine here, but against Magnus, you know, we all know that you shouldn't really have any weaknesses. These pawns on c6 and d5 are certainly potential weaknesses. This is something to play for Magnus. But you can just as well say that if Magnus was black, he would retreat the bishop on c5 and play c5 and get dynamic play with the pawns. I guess queen b6 and b3, right? And he has to return with the bishop on c5 somewhere and play c5. No, he played d4. That came unexpectedly, I think. To me, it seems like not a draw for, but the bishop on d4. If he could protect it with c5, it would be possible to get it away, but he didn't have time to play c5 because the rook was hanging on e8. But now comes c5 and c4, and I think perhaps it's time to switch to another board, is it? Is it time to switch to, let me think. This is a little bit too drawish, I think. Well, c4, if Magnus plays b4, just linger a little bit more, then there's at least something. If it doesn't, there's absolutely nothing. So give Magnus a chance to play b4 before we change to another game. He took on c4. Well, that was the last chance. Shall we have a look at Maxime Marché-Lagrave? I think we switch to Lagrave. Aronian, because here anything can happen. If you just look at no pieces traded, tension all over the board. Here anything can happen. This is I think it is an exciting position. I'm not sure because it may be closed at some moment. The moment if white decides to play, for instance, b5 and c4, then it's not that interesting any longer. But it seems like black is the one with the upper hand. He's the most active. He has the most activity, I thought. If he played b5, well, it's more interesting with attack on the king side, of course, because there's a king there. But is it something serious about? Well, after knight c4, if white just had time for taking on b6, but it doesn't, because after knight c4 there was b5. b5. Is b5 possible here? Doesn't look bad to me. Well, he played g5, just rushing with mate on the agenda, h5 and g4. d4, is that possible? At least it follows Nimzowitsch's recommendation to counter any attack on the side with an attack in the center. And if he wins back the d4 pawn, it seems like it does, then it looks actually like white is clearly having the upper hand, clearly, because the pawn on d6 is so weak. And here there are lots of weaknesses on the black camp. g5 is weak, d4 is certainly weak, but there's also diagonals for this bishop here or here. Queen b6 is hanging on to the c4 pawn. Roland goes for the d6 pawn instead, with knight c4 to come. Seems very good. Seems like the black position is suddenly falling apart. With good players, and this is typical, because then I always think, oh, it's absolutely critical for one side, and then he makes a move, and then I think it's absolutely critical for the other side, and then he changes his forehand back. And of course, Maxime Marché-Lagrave fights back because he's ready to play knight c8. Not now. Didn't get a chance to play knight c8. Now the pawns will start falling, I think. And we're talking perhaps all the pawns, the g5 pawns. Which pawn to take? The d4, d6, d6. He took the one on d6. It looked tempting to take all the pawns to me. But why not start with taking this one, because it's threatening the rook. Rook b8, gain some time, because it's hanging on b4. Can he continue? I'm not sure about taking on d6. Well, he had to perhaps, because the knight on b5 was hanging. I just thought the position was absolutely critical for Lagrave, but now I'm about to change my mind as usual. But I'm changing my mind again. Forehand back all the time. Anything can happen. Black is attacking. He does have an attack, but he's a pawn down. Knight g6 is in the air. Knight d5 is in the air. Ooh, shows the right game. Oh, mate on h7 is announced. This is seems like a great game. I have a feeling it might be over just now, actually. Is Marché-Lagrave still fighting, or is it just over? It's not just over. He's still fighting. So typical. Queen g4. This is quite a serious threat. Rook d3, and it seems like black is winning. This is so typical and so... he had to give away the... Well, this is really a great game, I think, but I think it's just to take on h3 and it's over, mate on h1. Quite a fantastic game. Wasn't easy to commentate on that one. Magnus Dinglien was a draw, as expected. So Nakamura has also played what seemed like a bit of a boring draw. Caruana beat Anand. Have to have a close look at that. Mamedyarov has started losing. It may be the tooth that has started playing a role. He has a bad tooth he discovered on the plane over here. And it's a serious danger that he might even have to withdraw from the tournament, the proper tournament, because of toothache. Just a quick look. Caruana, how Caruana beat Anand, because that's per definition interesting. They play normal solid openings. They use the preparation. Magnus just hides his preparation, I think, every game. Here it's just a normal game as usual with Anand and Caruana. Why did that pawn end up on a4? That's not normal. The pawn isn't hanging on a4, isn't it? Why couldn't he take? If it takes on h4, I think there's something about followed by bishop knight b4 and taking here. Maybe this has been played before when I think of it. So the a4 pawn survived. When f5 comes, then it becomes really strong for black, of course. Nothing wrong with the black position here, obviously. Oops. Tactics in the air again. Was that stupid? Or was it good? He won a pawn, lost 2 tempos. c5. If he takes it, it takes back with knight or bishop, becoming active. This knight is really struggling. I'm not sure if this is absolutely correct. To me it seems like white is a pawn up. And I have a feeling the computer would... But somehow the game was over here, which is a sign of... Did he lose on time again? Did Caruana win on time again? Because he won on time against Tinglien, I think. I don't see any reason white should be losing here.
Yes, that's correct.
He lost on time again. Caruana has won 2 games on time. Okay. We have a few minutes before next game. I wonder if the president of the Norwegian Chess Federation is here. He was supposed to, because it would be cool to talk to him a little. Is he there? He's here. Here comes the president of it all. Short break. So how is it, Morten Madsen, the president of all of this? Are you proud of your empire?
Empire, that was a big word. Yes, I'm very proud, and I'm quite humble also. And we see here what's happening, so it's very, very nice.
Yes. Is the federation playing any role in this?
Not a big part. This is mostly Kjell Madland and his team who has done most of this, and of course with all their supporters, sponsors and volunteers. And in total this is a very big event, yes.
Yes. It seems like quite a great gift to get for a federation, all the attention that we get with Magnus Carlsen and everything. In what ways do you manage to exploit all the attention you get?
Well, actually we feel we haven't exploited it all, but there are a lot of spin-off effects. This is one of them. This is almost more than a spin-off. So we also have a lot of chess players in Norway doing education and doing more like trying to promote chess, and chess in schools, for instance, in Norway has been a very, very big thing. We recently got 5 million Norwegian crowns from Sparebankstiftelsen DNB, which is a great gift, and we really would like to get chess into schools more.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. We get the resources money-wise, but do we have the human resources to follow up all the things we are kind of being gifted?
We probably should have had more, but we don't have at the chess office, the Norwegian Chess Federation. We can't afford at the moment to have more people on the payroll. But mainly, most of the things happening in Norway are done by volunteers all over. So that's a good thing.
Mm. So, do we have a program for making a new Magnus Carlsen?
Well, that is statistically very difficult. So we will see. Maybe he has got this big talent, and maybe you would be the better person to answer that question.
Yeah. I work on this full time.
Yeah,
I work as a chess school. I'm trying to follow up, of course, but it takes years.
Yes.
But we have seen what happened in India. That obviously was thanks to Anand.
Yes.
I just talked to Aronian, and Armenia has become a very strong chess nation, and asked him, was it that strong before, during the Soviet Union times? And he said, no, it was thanks to him that they have become so strong.
Yeah.
And now we have Magnus. And do you think we have a chance to become as strong as Armenia and India?
Maybe, but there are a lot of good youngsters playing chess now, and at your school everybody on our national team has actually been there, gone through your school, so that's a credit for you and your school. And we have a strong team. Last Olympiad we got I think we ended number 5 and
that
qualified.
Was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
You became number 5 in the Olympiad.
Incredible. And we also have the junior world champion in Arjan Tari, which is very good. And I've also heard that you are going to play the senior championship, European championship this autumn.
No.
Oh no!
I will play the senior over 50 championship here. It will be in Drammen.
Yeah.
So is the Norwegian Chess Federation, is that the policy to organize the European Senior Championship, for instance? Is that
we have a policy that we should be visible and try to arrange big events in Norway. So this is a small step, one of them, and hopefully in a few years or so we might even arrange the World Championship.
The World Senior Championship?
Yeah, probably, maybe. Or the World Championship.
The World Championships, right.
Yeah.
That would be great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello. It wasn't a game starting now. It was a little bit longer break actually. So the next game starts in 10 minutes. But don't leave us. So we'll keep up the show. We'll keep the show going. First of all, tweet pictures of yourself watching the show and mark it #Norwegian chess, I think. I'm not really a social media guy, but I think I got it right there. Tweet pictures and at #Altibox Norway chess. Sorry, Altibox Norway chess. That's the hashtag. But I just wanted to follow up a little bit, since I have a few minutes, because we talked with the president, and we talked a little bit about the program for making a new Magnus Carlsen. And that's my job actually. I've been working as a chess coach for the last 20 years at Norges Toppidrettsgymnas. It's a Norwegian elite sport high school. And there we actually managed to collect all the best juniors in the country. So, and our star student at the moment is Arian Tari, who actually become a world junior champion. That was really big actually, because it's great to have one world champion, but it's even better to have two. And now someone has ambitions of even getting a European senior champion, which is supposed to be me, but I'm not that ambitious at all. I'm ambitious on behalf of my students. I don't care about myself anymore, because it's a long time since I was on my peak. So I'm just there that I want to play and have fun with chess. And I love to follow events like this, and the Olympiad, not Olympiad, the World Championship matches too, of course. That's really big in Norway. In case you haven't noticed, then all the big news channels follow it, and it's been transferred on the Norwegian main broadcast channel, and we're talking million viewers, and that's the best you can get in Norway. So the interest is enormous, and it's thanks to Magnus, of course. It helps to have a world champion. But so then we kind of have to wait and see how long time it takes before we get the results. But what I think about this is that we don't get any results without just by itself, just by Magnus playing fantastically and getting enormous attention doesn't make anyone play. But it is those volunteer, ideal people who work, open doors and so on. They are so important. And I know also this tournament, this looks so professional. It's based on voluntarism, people working voluntarily. So thanks, a great thanks to all of them actually. I use every chance I have to say that. So just want to say that. And next game will start in 5 minutes. I think we'll have a 3-minute break before we'll come back to watch the next, to watch round 6. Short break again. Welcome back. Now it's a real interesting game with Magnus against Anand, because that's how it all started in Norway. Magnus beating Anand in the World Championship in Chennai in 2013, and now they're off. I wonder if Magnus will play the Berlin. He will. That's what they played, and that is kind of a revisit of what they played in the World Championship match. Maybe we'll even see some of their preparation. D3. People have given up trying to play this ending, and they play this classical setup instead. It's a bit like the Italian, just with the bishop on b5 instead of c4. It's nothing special for white, I'm absolutely sure, but that's Italian has become interesting because anything can happen, which is a good starting point for an interesting game. Or a completely equal position, which is a good starting point for an interesting game, as I remember Bent Larsen used to say. Even if the position is equal, so what? Things will heat up eventually. But very classical setup so far. Magnus is sending the knight to g6. Anand wants to do the same with the bishop to knight to f1 soon, I guess. I'm a little bit curious about the bishop on a4, if it's lost or won time compared to an ordinary Italian. And who's ahead in time here? Rook e8, knight g3, h6. Well, I think that generally the critical thing here is who gets the chance to play d4 or d5 first. He normally has a little bit of something, not much, but then it will. Here, Anand is taking the chance to play d5. Interesting. And it's a kind of a classical. Because if it takes on d5, a knight takes on e5, I didn't get a chance to show that. There are tricks with bishop takes f2 and knight queen f6 check. So it was kind of protected, the pawn on e5. So Anand didn't spend any thought about that. Save this time for more critical positions, which will surely arise. I was just about to say, but I don't think so after d takes e4, because this might be a little bit too boring, actually. Or maybe queen f6, knight f4. No, that didn't happen. Queen f6, then there were bishop g5, so that was a blunder, would have been a blunder, or not a good move. Here it looks very, very equal. Again, I'm drifting over to have a look at if there are more interesting games. I saw Magnus in the break. He seemed to be in a very good move. He was jolly and happy, and no worries, it seemed. So a draw here and there, so what, I think he thinks. But and I think Anand has too much respect for Magnus to try to, well, it was not only about respect, of course. I think the position is just, this is just drawish. We have to find something else. Karyakin, so, a classical attack. I think we'll switch to that. Just because it's something classical about, this is something. I wonder, so is on 50%, so there's no crisis there. It doesn't necessarily have to win or something, but when you look at position, it seems to be in a very aggressive move with all the pawns on g4 and h5, all the pieces over here. But without the queen to follow up, it might not be so much of an attack. 3 pawns. Black is very solid with all the pawns unmoved. It's not so easy to see how white can strengthen the attack. Probably he can't. Probably has to just play positional somehow, and then we start looking at the pawn on 8-4. If that is weak, that one is weak. Can he take it? Why not take it the pawn? It's my question. I don't see why he can't take the pawn. Knight c4 and queen back somewhere. He took the pawn. Critical position. Just because your opponent sacrifices the pawn, it doesn't mean he really has a point or has seen everything. b5. The point of no return has been passed. That's cool. He couldn't, well, he could, I'm not sure if he could, but taking that pawn on b5 was perhaps too much, but it wasn't out of the question, I would say. But probably that would have been too dangerous with two open lines towards the king. Now it's only the one. Well, it's a little bit hard to see actually what's the point here. But I see that after b3, it is possible to play knight. He played b3. It is possible to play knight c4, but then maybe just bishop c1 or something. Here comes knight c4, bishop c1. Cool, managing to guess the moves. But to me it seems like Wesley So is a pawn up, and with very little time left for Karyakin, this is a very good chance for him to get a full point here, I think, because it's just about surviving. He doesn't need to prove anything. He is a pawn up, so it's Karyakin that has to prove something, and that's not easy with 8 seconds left. What on earth? He can't spend time thinking. It must have been something. I'm not sure what's happening with the clock here, but the clock, if he took with the f pawn, that was not very positional, perhaps. But if he wants to create an passed h pawn, it's actually logical not to take towards the center, but. That might be a factor in the ending, having a passed pawn there. Doesn't this look like a wonderful position for white? I think it does. He even has the second. It's about his full control in the one open line. Knight f5 is in the air. There it came. Without having time to think. Is this over? This looks like over somehow. It's not quite over because he can take and play. He didn't take. He should have taken first. It was mate. He could have taken. If it's taken first, he would have taken on f8 and mated on g7. Okay, so that was. Now I have a feeling it's becoming to look quite critical for Karyakin. He started losing games, many games. He's only beating the one with the toothache in the last 4 games. Karyakin has lost 4 games in the last 5 rounds, which is a bad sign. Magnus Carlsen drew as expected. Hikaru drew against Maxime Bachela-Grau, also a draw. Oh, Mohamed Yaro beat Caruana, the leader. Of course, it's not really a big surprise because Mohamed Yaro could beat anyone, but just at this tournament, he started so badly, so then it's kind of a little bit of a surprise. But the one game still going on, and I have a feeling that Ding Liren will get his first full point here against Aronian. Maybe not, because that queen move. Oh, now it's about calculating again. Is it one or not? Could be one for anyone, I think. Oops. ends up in a draw. Okay, well fought. I have a feeling it was well fought by Aronian. I think he was in big danger. So that was a draw. Just have a look at it a little bit before. It was a pawn ending. This started off as a pawn ending. Became a queen ending. Started off as a pawn ending here. That's interesting. This seems like a pawn ending that should be better for black. At some point. Here maybe. Oops. Did he miss g4? I think that must have come as an awkward surprise. If he takes on h5, Dinglieren will queen with check, so we went here. And then we had this ending, which seemed really scary for... I thought it was scary, but it wasn't so scary at the moment. Would it have been very scary if it played this one first? This could easily have been a winning move or a winning position for Dinglieren. To me it seems like it's just about bringing the king a little bit closer and then check on g7 and trade queens. So perhaps he missed a win, Dinglieren, but without time it's of course easily done, but still, queen c3 saved the day. I think. Did it? It's possible to play h7. Well, then maybe this saves the day, I don't know. It's not really possible to come closer to the queen side with the king. Okay, draw. Shall we have a short look at Mamadjaro beating Caruana, because now Caruana was the leader and Mamadjaro was on the other side and tailoring the thing. Again, dynamism is the thing with Mamadjaro. And bishop e3, I'm not sure about allowing knight g4. Well, all those people who talk about theory destroys the chess. Well, it's not so much theory in the top chess as you might think, at least not when they play Blitz. This is a totally atypical position. What is the bishop doing on h4? Should have been on e3, I think. I think Caruana seems to be quite outplayed here. He's trying to save himself in the ending. Oops, oops, oops. Very strong bishop on c8. Well, I'm sure... Well, it's just dynamic all the time. I have no idea what the computer judges this position, but it could be either way, I think. Because now it seems like white is just a pawn up. And just in a few moves later, he's lost. This must have been a... Well, I think the white must be clearly better somehow here, b3 or something. And now it's probably changed. This pawn is alive, and this might... Pawn is just going straight in. Okay, that was it. And it's only 5 minutes to the next game again. Only 3 games left. And then Wesley So has entered the lead. Caruana started with a loss, and his game it's ended with a loss too. And the first and 6th game was a loss. Wesley So is solid as usual, and by beating Karyakin, he's on +1, and that's enough actually for being in the lead. No, I'm wrong. Sorry, I'm watching wrongly here. Nakamura is leading, of course, with 4 out of 6. Magnus is on lots of players on 3.5. Sorry, I forgot all the other players on 3.5. So anything can happen. It's enough to be on +2 to lead the tournament. But it has been enough decisive games. It's not because of lots of draws that there are so many people on the same level score. Here anyone can beat anyone, obviously. Three games to go. It's impossible to guess who will win. Somehow Magnus didn't seem that determined to win. Maybe it's not so important for him to win, or maybe it's just his new way by being more relaxed, and that's maybe a good way. He seemed very relaxed when I saw him in the break here a couple of minutes ago. Okay, just a 1 minute break, just to let us prepare for the next round. Okay, folks, it's Magnus Carlsen against Caruana. This is the beginning of the World Championship match, I would say. And it's a proper game. Magnus playing the Nimzo Indian, which is interesting. He doesn't play. It doesn't avoid a critical. He doesn't avoid theory. He plays normal chess. Puts the knight on e2. That's what he did against Karyakin some time ago. I think he had about the same position against Karyakin, not the same. But that's he played with knight e2, the classical Rubinstein variation in Nimzowitsch. Putting knight on e2 gives white a little bit more of a dynamic options. And a classical setup, but still a little bit special because the knight is on e2. It's very hard to get an advantage against the Nimzo Indian, I must say. So fantastic invention by Aron Nimzowitsch, who wrote the famous book in 1925, My System. And that's the things he wrote there is still valuable today. That's the basic. It was him that created the basic. What we take for granted today wasn't for granted then. But Magnus will take back with the pawn, and we have a classical single pawn structure, which is interesting always because it's either is strong or is good. Magnus normally likes to play against the isolated pawn. He likes to play against weaknesses. An isolated pawn is a weakness, but it opens up for active piece play, and that's what Magnus is starting with now. Next move is queen d3 to queen d3 will come, and now he has to make a decision. G6, knight g6, something. Knight g6, because I was just going to say if he plays g6, he would really miss the knight bishop on a5 back on the king's side. But this knight g6 makes it interesting because it's very tempting somehow to chase it away with h4 and h5, but even if he succeeds in that, the knight can just withdraw to f8 and it will be no mate on h7. So if there is no mate on h7, what is there then? Then you have to start thinking about fighting for the square in front of the isolated pawn, which is the important one according to Nimzowitsch. In isolated pawn structures, the square in front of the pawn is the important one, not the isolated pawn in itself. It took on d5, it took back on d4, and now we're getting a little bit dry pawn structure, I'm afraid. It's not Caruana's fault. That was possible to play the bishop to f4, cool, because it's mate on h7. It might be something for white, not much. But if he managed to trade the black squared bishops, because then he theoretically has the better bishop, the one on the white squared bishop, the white squared bishop is theoretically slightly better because it's on the opposite side of this pawn on d4. But this is a draw, to put it simple. Anything else would be very, very surprising. Which which draws my attention to the left of the screen here to see if there is anything else that might be of interest. A classical counter between Aronian and Anand. I don't know how many times they met each other, but that's many. The Magnus game is still on the board. I've seen Karpov winning structures like this. Now there is something actually, because it is actually a good knight, or not that good at the moment, but it is a bad bishop on c6. Karpov managed to beat Kasparov with that team, but here it shouldn't be possible, to put it simple, because there is only one weakness, and that's the one pawn on d5. And basically you need two weaknesses. Well, that's what they say. At least you need more than one. It's not much to play for Magnus here. I think I will switch to Aronian quickly. It's more interesting there. Because I just see a knight has returned to b8, and then this knight is going to win the pawn on c6. So it seems like there are lots of bad pieces for black here. Horrible bishop on h7, and so on. Well, not so on. It's basically the one on h7 that is a weak one. But it doesn't matter if you're pawn up, and Anand is a pawn up. This is just a pawn up. So it seems like a5 wasn't that obvious. Gives black a weakness. Okay, this is quite interesting actually, because here anything can happen again. I wasn't sure about that a5 move. Just created a weakness for himself. But maybe the pawn was weak on a6 too. Is Aronian playing a very impressive game here, positionally? Because the pieces are active, but he is a pawn down, which is a big, well, to me it would have been a big issue. But the returning with the queen, returning with the knight too, then the strategy must be just to stay there and hope for better times to appear later. But now I think we're playing, well, I wouldn't say two results, because anything can, Aronian has no time left. He spent all his time and it's a pawn down. That's especially the timing is the issue here. I remember Jan Timman said to me when I was young that 1 minute on the clock in Blitz is like one pawn. So if you sacrifice a pawn, or if you have a minute ahead on the clock, you can sacrifice a pawn actually. It's just a bit strange because it's so different things. But now I'm beginning to well, I was beginning to like White's position until I saw rook c6, because that rook was a bit misplaced on f6. But still, black is just a pawn up still, and now it's 2 pawns in the center. Okay, will be over very soon. I think black is just winning here. If that is possible, then it's over. Knight f4, cool. It's mate if he takes with the knight, and it's the queen and priest if he takes with the bishop. So that's it. That's over. That was a cool finish. But playing so slowly is a bad sign from Aronian. You cannot play that slowly, and so there are a few players that has not impressed here, I would say. But we have to go back to Magnus' game, because somehow it seems like he's winning. How did that rook end up on b5? Incredible. It's a completely winning position for White. You can just send the queen to just take on b5 whenever he wants to, and send the king to c3. He doesn't even have to. He can send the king to a3 and up to a5, a4. Cool. Well, it doesn't really matter. It's possible to defend that rook. We return to the Magnus game. We thought it was uninteresting, but then we come back, and then it's just one for Magnus. He doesn't really have to take it. Actually, he can do anything, and that's it, I guess. He resigns. So he won actually. That's kind of 1-0 in the World Championship match. They say that Caruana has a good grip on Magnus because he's beaten him a few times, but Magnus has beaten Caruana many more times actually. On the Norway chess.no, on the organizers' chess site, they have a fantastic statistics site here. You can click on the player, and you can click on who's they played against, and then you will see that Magnus has won 40% of the games, and they have played 53 games in normal chess, and Magnus has won 40% of them He's lost 21 of them, which is quite many for... I don't think there are anyone who's beaten Magnus that many times as Corona. But Corona loses so many games against Magnus, so Magnus is clearly having the upper hand here. But I'm really curious about how that rook ended up on b5. I think I have to go back a little bit. So here, we ended up in this. The knight is bad, the bishop is bad. Well, the main thing here is how on earth did the rook end up on b5? It's suicide. Karan is on a suicide mission. And now it's too late. He has to return as quickly as possible. He didn't, and now it's actually trapped, the rook. Now it's too late. Oh, he must have felt quite stupid here, getting that knight to rook on. That was really stupid of Corona. But it is a little bit. The position is slightly difficult, but not. It should be holdable, of course. That was special, but it happens often with Corona. It's my impression that it makes strange things, and still. He's number 2 in the world, which is quite impressive. That's what I think about Magnus also sometimes, that he's also sometimes playing a little bit boring, a little bit slow and so on. And so he's got good potential, is what I've been thinking about him. The day he plays really sharp, like we know he can, and play with lot armed with all the theory, we know he can. How strong couldn't he be then? But there's certainly potential in Caruana too, because he loses quite many games in quite stupid ways, I would say. When he stops doing that, what would his rating be then? So, when there's 2 rounds left, Magnus is in the lead. No, is he? He is. Because Koran only drew against Dingliren. Maxime Vachaer-Lagrave drew against Karyakin. We saw Anand beat Aronian. Wesley So beat Mamadjaro. We haven't really looked at that one. But I have a feeling, I think that this is bad news, with Mamadjaro doing quite badly in the Blitz, because he's got 2.5 points. Dingliren and Aronian has done even worse with only 2 points. But Mamadjaro has an excuse. He has toothache. Will that be so serious that he will withdraw from the tournament tomorrow is the big question. I hope not, because I don't think the organizers have any replacement actually. So we might end up with a tournament with only 9 players, which is a bit of a pity. But I don't know what to be done about toothache, but we need a dentist. I'm sure the organizers are taking care of that. I actually heard Kjell Manland talked about calling his own dentist, and was a bit worried about disturbing him on a Sunday. What would happen the next time he went to the dentist then? But it's not every day a dentist gets a chance to draw out the tooth of a world class chess player, I would say. So hopefully he can be there when needed. But at least there is very close in the lead. 4 players with 4.5 points. Vachaer-Lagrave chasing only half a point behind that. So it's no surprise that Magnus is there. He hasn't impressed, I must say. He hasn't played brilliant chess or anything. He's just taking the chances that has been given to him. Anand seems to have impressed a little bit, as far as I could tell. I haven't been able to follow Hikaru Nakamura games, but he's always strong in Blitz. Wesley So seems to be in good mood. He seems very relaxed. I saw him playing a simultaneous exhibition on a shopping mall here yesterday. It was clock simul, 15 minutes against 15 players. Both players had 15 minutes, which is 1 minute in average per player for Wesley So. And even then, he was very relaxed. He walked slowly, calmly around and won all the games against decent opposition. There were a few 1900 players there. If those 15 players had been able to cooperate and play very fast, I think Wesley So would have struggled. But Wesley So seems to be very strong, actually, by telling from body language and the result in the Blitz here. And by telling, it's not possible to tell anything from Aronian's body language because he's always nice and relaxed, it seems. But Dingliren needs to sleep well. I don't know how long he's been in Norway, but it's a long travel. It's a long travel from China. It's a long travel from the United States too. But Caruana warmed up by playing in the playoff in the Bundesliga, and he did that together with Anand. And a third player. They all won the Bundesliga. Can't remember the third player at the moment. 3 minutes till next game. We need to change the setting on the screen here. So 1 minute break. Very close now. It's only 2 rounds left, and there are 4 players in the lead with 4.5 points. You can even hear a beep behind in the background because it's a cycling race behind us. It's a big Tour de Fjords, I think it's called, with international cyclists and so on. So a lot of things happening here in Stavanger, the oil town of Norway. And a lot of things happening here too. I think we'll follow Nakamura Anand or Anand Nakamura because they are both leaders, and also because Nakamura has a fantastic grip on Anand, I think. I haven't had time to look it up on the norwaychess.no site yet, but the score is between them is there. Anand has avoided the ending in the Berlin defense again. So normal position, and it's a little bit difficult to treat these positions with especially black, I think, because there are so many ways to play it. To me it seems like it's nice to play d5 in one go, because that's kind of the goal of the whole thing, is to play d5. But is it possible? It is. He played d5 here. I'm sure this is theory. I don't know what it is, but I think I'm not sure if there is the trick again. If he takes on d5, if he may take him back on with the knight, because there is this trick with bishop takes f2. If he takes, no, he can. Yeah, if he goes fast here. I don't understand his positions. To me, it seems like black has succeeded in every possible way. Is the first one in the center. Hard to understand. And that bishop went to e6, not so easy to understand that either, because it could go to b7 too, which was also natural. It ended up on e6. What to take back with? Either one. I could take back with, I don't know what's best. Could take with anyone, to me. Knight isn't the normal way to take back, but there might be tricks there with d4 and knight e4, and suddenly things coming up to g5 and so on. And might be very active, actually. Taking with bishop or queen prevents knight e4. He took with the bishop. After knight e4 now, it's possible to simply take it, and then it will be a bit... here it comes bishop e4. If it takes it, I can't see any problem for black at all, I must say. Unless there is something about... I don't see it. Take on e4 and play bishop c4 is my suggestion, because to force b3, because after bishop e6 there is knight g5 perhaps. What about knight g5? He accepts knights. He allows knight g5. What happens to knight g5 now? Perhaps it's not that big deal to let him take on e6. But you certainly cannot move the bishop back. He played bishop d3. b3 is very slowly. Could this be something? Anand is very good in these positions. It's always been. He's always also kind of a dynamic player. I think it's easier with solid pawn structures, and you have solid plans, but without a solid pawn structure, there is a pawn structure here, but there's no pawns to attack, no real weakness. And in such positions, they're much more difficult to play, I think. But there is something about the square on d5. Bishop coming there, and rook can come there. f6, solid. Bishop, queen d7 is, bishop d7 is possible. I guess it just protects with rook c8. Or bishop d6. But can this possibly be anything? Probably not. Must be a draw. It's not always interesting just because you're in Nakamura. Not all these games are that entertaining. And it's not ahead on time either. How is the Magnus position? Because this is tending to become a little bit dry to me, to my taste. Magnus is playing Aronian. I don't think anything big is happening there either. What's the most interesting game of the round? It may be Karyakin, well, Wesley So Karana. They are the leaders. We have to have a look at them. Not quite leaders. Wesley So is the co-leader. I'm switching to Wesley So. Of course, it's a lot of prestige between these new American guys. Nakamura is I don't know, I guess he's born in the United States, but and so is Karana, as far as I know. But he was Italian for a while. But Nakamura is more new. It's a newcomer to the United States. So I think it's a little bit of a competition between these three American stars. I guess it's just good for all of them, the competition here. But to me, it seems like White is threatening absolutely nothing. And Wesley So's pieces are very strong. Prevents even Queen F4, which it wasn't really necessary to prevent it because he could have played. Well, it was maybe, but just to trade queens and run with the A pawn. The A pawn is, of course, the crucial factor here. Or maybe you can simply play. What about E6? I was just going to say it. This is close to over, but not quite over. Knight E8, C7. That one is trapped. Now it's all or nothing. After, well, Queen A5, isn't that just winning in the knight? I think black must be absolutely winning here. He goes forth and back to save time or something. What's the point? He's ignoring the knight on C7. How could Caruana get such a horrible position is my question. Caruana is just focusing on trying to trade queens. I hear TV2 in the background here talking about seconds left on the clock. They're probably talking about Magnus. I think this game is over. I think Wesley So will win this. Especially now as the queens will be traded. I think we'll switch to Aronian Magnus because here is a critical phase, of course. Seconds left on the clock. Somehow Aronian has started playing slowly, but nothing wrong with his position. His king's position is solid. It's actually Magnus has something. He's got the rook behind the passed pawn, but that passed pawn is perhaps doomed. But that's okay if black managed. Well, who is better here? This may easily be Aronian actually, because it's not really easy to see what he can take on. He cannot enter the pawn. He enters the pawn ending. Isn't that just completely lost? He has to play G5, H5 and G4 and save the draw. That's the way to save the draw. Oh, Magnus, I'm hearing the screaming here in the background. Don't take with the H-pawn. That was Jon Ludvig Hammer. I couldn't avoid hearing it. They screamed it out all over the place. And he did take with H-pawn. And now suddenly Magnus lost, actually. That was a big turn. And that was a quite big surprise, of course. The position is drawn if he takes with a... F pawn. He took with the H pawn. That's such a move that could change the whole tournament. Because depending on how seriously you take it, because what a blunder. Magnus blundered enormously. Maybe he was too relaxed. Then Magnus certainly won't win the Blitz tournament. And what kind of sign is that before the serious tournament that starts tomorrow? Because Magnus has had quite a few quite bad tournaments here in Stavanger actually. I don't know if he feels the pressure or something. And it's no one pressuring him. So it's only himself if that is the case. But that was a serious blow for Magnus. And Wesley So did win that game against Caruana and is now leading with a half a point to Anand and Nakamura, who drew. That was no surprise. That gave us something to think about. I wonder how Magnus looks now the next time he comes out. It's possible to see the players, they go out between the rounds, they just pass us here. And I wonder how his body language is like. I would love to talk to Neikar Nakamura, he's here, but it's only a few minutes till next round. But he seems to be doing his... I haven't seen his game solid properly, but he seems to be as solid as ever. Hasn't lost a game and won 2 games. Couldn't be more solid, and understandably he is relaxed and happy. It's something about not wasting energy, because it is quite energy demanding playing this tournament, I can tell you. And wasting energy by being annoyed by playing big blunders, that could be really draining actually. So I really wonder what this does to Magnus, this blunder. But that's just good for competition. Yeah, I noticed we followed most of Magnus' games here, but we're not really. Well, at least I think it's good to have. It's good that Magnus wins, but it's also good that this gets competition. And I think it is perhaps a reminder for Magnus too, that he has to pull himself together. He can't just play very slowly all the time and just win in the endings as he often does, but he cannot put all his money on that, I think. Sometimes his openings is just nothing, but still he wins, and as long as he wins like that, he keeps on doing it. So on the day this slow openings doesn't help. But this was just a blunder. I don't know, we have to go back to the whole game. We left it, so we didn't really left it. We didn't see it at all. We started off with someone else, but yeah, we'll have a short look at it. It's a normal game, normal opening. Theory, full of theory, I guess. Actually, I have no idea, but I guess it is full of theory. This thing. It's a little bit modern to me. They didn't play these pawn structures 20 years ago. But it's hard to see, well, it's hard to see that white should have anything here. It was nothing wrong with Magnus' position, of course. Here he sacrifices a pawn. That's I wonder what happens on Queen A3, but well, don't have time to think about that now. Well, at this moment it looks quite promising for white. Magnus didn't lose because of course he didn't lose because of anything wrong with the position. It lost because he blundered. But now this might well, I'm not sure actually if well, Magnus, if he's calculated this, it's not possible to calculate this far, that you have to send your king to f4, no, to d4. You have to calculate what happened in the game quite early here, because you have to play this. You cannot go for the f pawn, because then this one will run, and then h5 and g4 next will actually be a draw. Or hard to calculate, I would say. I take the privilege not to calculate, since I'm black is in time to hold the draw. Well, big blunder. Aronian and Magnus has played also enormous amount of games against each other, and I remember Aronian knocking out Magnus from the World Cup in Libya. Must have been in 2003, 2003, I think. Quite many years ago. So at that time it seemed like Aronian had a good grip on Magnus. But it goes both ways, because Magnus has beaten Aronian quite many times too. It's never boring between Aronian and Magnus. Even though it sometimes seems to be a boring position, it always ends up with something. Creative players, both of them. Three minutes till the next game. We need a minute to change the setting on the screen. We'll be back in a minute before the final round. Wesley So is leading, half a point ahead of Ananda Nakamura. We'll be back in a minute. last round has started. We will follow Wesley So this time. We haven't seen any of his games yet, but he is the leader of the tournament. He's got 5.5 points out of 8. He's in a fantastic stream. He hasn't lost he's lost a game, but he's won 3 games in a row and suddenly is in great shape. He's a big form player. And with Lagrave, it won't be boring. This is Lagrave is on 4 points. He's number 5 at the moment. It's enough to be number 5 to get 5 whites. That's after all what this is all about. It's just to get the good number for the proper tournament that starts tomorrow. A good starting number. And the first 5 numbers have 5 whites. So that's a bit important. What about this? Wesley So, is he offering a draw? If Lagrave goes back to f5, is he happy with the draw? Is it a psychological maneuver? Oh, Vashid Lagrave wants to win, perhaps. It was a bit confusing with that knight going back and forth and back to h4, but it seems to me that black has won a tempo. And is already countering in the center, which is not that easy to calculate since there is a pawn on b7 and pries. And I wonder what happens if white just takes it. Of course he takes it. Must get some kind of activity for it, but that's hard. That's hard to make such decisions. Now, it was possible to trade queens, but I think the compensation is simply that it's a little bit difficult for white to develop the bishop on c1. But is it that difficult? Can't he just play e4 and go out with it anytime he wants to? So there is a weak square on d3 for there might be a black bishop on d3, of course. The queen is a little bit awkwardly placed. If you just simply play the e4, it looks natural. I think the queen can go to f3 here, or anywhere actually. Like g4 is possible too. Just go somewhere. Oh, he played knight d5. If that is possible, was it necessary to play that? I'm not sure, because queen f6. To me, it seems like the pawn on b2 might easily fall. I'm not sure about that queen d5 move. Knight d5 move, sorry. But if white's goal is just to hold a draw, makes it a little bit easier. But can't black just take on d5 now and have absolutely no problems? If he takes on d5, I guess he takes back. It takes a couple of times and plays rook b1. He didn't. He took on b1. It seems like Vashid Lagrave is looking for blood here, which is quite ambitious because. But he got away with it. He snapped the pawn back, and still he can't take on c4 because it will be hanging on f2. And now it's possible to trade off lots of things and take on d5 at the end. And that is perhaps what will happen too. But it will be a draw in the end there, I think. So I'm not sure. I wouldn't say it. Seems like Wesley So is quite. What should you say? He needs a draw, and he goes for a draw. But this is actually better for. There is rook d2 coming. Seems like black is better. So maybe he was a little bit too careful there. That's the thing. In Blitz, activity is more important than material. Perhaps, I don't know. But I was a little bit suspect about the way Lagrave played in the opening. Now it's a kind of critical thing here because the king on h3, is that one safe? It might easily be actually. Hard to see. Well, rook g1, then it won't be able to return. but there is queen d4 check. He needs to keep it in the center. But queen f6, isn't this just winning the f pawn? If So loses this game, he will still get 5 whites, so it's not that much at stake. He will still be among the first 5. So, but it's tempting to look a little bit towards the other games. It's a little step towards number 6 on the table. That's Mamadiyaro and Karan on 3.5 points. This looks close to mate. It wasn't mate directly, but maybe Wesley is actually saving himself, is he? No immediate way to exploit that one. Rook d3, there is rook e3, queen f3, there is queen g3, and if he takes on f2, there is queen e5. Seems like Wesley So has saved himself. The verse is over, it will only be a draw, it seems. I don't think... well, what happens if he just takes on f3 with the queen? Queen e5 and king h6. That king might be safe on h6 actually. But he has to trade on e3 and it will be a 3 against 2 pawn ending, which is a draw. Doesn't matter if it's better for black as long as it's a draw. This is a draw. It's no big way of making a draw by Wesley, not so impressive, nothing big about making a draw this way, but it is still a draw is a draw. So that one is kind of over, it's a draw. I see that Mamadiyaro has beaten Dingliren. No, Mamadiyaro has beaten Dingliren. I kind of feel a little bit sorry for Mamadiyaro because of his tooth. So hopefully that helps his mood for playing on and in the tournament tomorrow. And next time we get a chance, we have to ask Dingliren when he came to Norway, because I still suspect he's jet-lagged. He was in great form just some days ago in the Chinese League. He won 5 games in a row. And well, we have to look at are there any other games, because we can't follow Lagrave anymore. Magnus has drawn Nakamura. Anand has drawn 2. Have they all drawn? Aronian is playing Karana. Let's see. Okay, we have to look at Karana's game, I think. Karana is still having a proper game. And Karana is yeah, it's over. Karana won against Aronian, which means that Aronian played quite a horrible Blitz tournament. He got only 3 points, and one was due to a quite big blunder of Magnus Carlsen, no less. So a big warning sign on Aronian. He won last year the whole tournament, so he has to pull himself together for tomorrow's game. Dingliren needs to sleep. Karyakin says he's either number 1 or the last in the tournament, and he hoped to be the number 1 this time, but he also needs to pull himself together because it's only 8 in this tournament. And Corona, and so let me see. Wesley So won the tournament. He won the Blitz. The draw was what he needed. He won with 6 points. Nakamura followed by 5.5. Anand at 5.5. Magnus on 5. And Mamadjaro seems to be ahead on... I'm not sure actually. Some Sonnenberg. There are 3 players on 4.5. Maxim, Mamadjaro, Vashela Grav and Corona. And I'm not sure which of them will have 5 whites then. A bit of a disappointing tournament perhaps for Fabiano Caruana, 50% score. Of the big form player these days. He's had some great tournaments, of course, since the candidate, and the Grenka after that. He also won that one, if I remember right. But now he ended up by, well, he won against Aronian in the last game here. But apart from that, he ended up, he lost 3 of his 4 last games. So there are a few question marks here. Is it just because he's bad at Blitz because compared to ordinary chess, or is it something about his form going up and down and you never know when he's in form and when he's not? But anyway, this was only the warm-up, nothing serious at stake. We got a few signs, and we see that Anand is still fit for fight, solid as ever, as always. And when he wins a few games, he will perhaps compete in the top here in Altibox Norway chess in the series tournament, despite being the lowest ranked player actually. So I can see Magnus being interviewed by TV2. He's smiling, seems to be very relaxed. Nothing seems to worry him, which is perhaps a good sign. Sometimes when he's placed at his best, he's kind of in a bubble. It's not possible to talk to him or anything because he's so focused. Now he seems just to be relaxed and in a good mood, and which normally is a good sign for other people, but you never know with Magnus if it's a good sign for his result or not. But at least he's not upset because of that one blunder he did. So, is that it for today? I think that's it for today. So welcome back. Follow us tomorrow, and I'm sure the social media person will inform you about all the social media things, because that's the kind of important thing, the communication forth and back. We would love to have tweets and pictures and all that on the different social medias. See you soon. See you tomorrow. I think it starts 3:30, 4 o'clock? 3:30? It starts 4 o'clock tomorrow Norwegian time. 4:30. Starts 4:30. Okay, 4:30. We'll meet again.